One of the more underrated aspects of Thomas Sankara was his efforts to lift women and make Burkina Faso a more equal society, breaking the shackles of traditional gender roles that had long relegated women to the sidelines. From a young age, Sankara observed the stark disparities between the treatment of men and women, an awareness nurtured by the influence of his mother and 6 sisters. Even as a 9-year-old, he had stepped forth and shielded his mother from his father's hand. In a speech given by Sankara on International Women's Day in 1987, reproduced in full in the book Women's Liberation and the African Freedom Struggle, he said, quote, "While society sees the birth of a boy as a gift from God, the birth of a girl is greeted as an act of fate, or at best, a gift that can be used to produce food and perpetuate the human race. The little male will be taught how to want and get, to speak up and be served, to desire and take, to decide things on his own." End quote. Then he compared it to how society raises women. Quote, "The future woman, however, is dealt blow after blow by a society that unanimously, as one man, and as one man is the appropriate term, drums into her head norms that lead nowhere." End quote. He continues, quote, "From the age of 3, she must meet the requirements of her role in life, to serve and be useful. While her brother of 4 or 5 or 6 will play till he drops from exhaustion or boredom, she, with little ceremony, will enter the process of production. She already has a trade, assistant housewife. It is of course an unpaid position, for isn't it generally said that a housewife does nothing? Don't we write housewife on the identity cards of women who have no income, meaning they have no job? That they are not working? With the help of tradition and obligatory submissiveness, our sisters grow up more and more dependent, more and more dominated, more and more exploited, and with less and less leisure or free time." End quote. Sankara outlawed female circumcision, polygamy, and forced marriage. He introduced a minimum age for marriage and decided on new rulings that made it so that divorce proceedings now had to consider a woman's consent. Widows, long marginalized, were granted inheritance rights. And prostitution he called, quote, "nothing but a microcosm of a society where exploitation is a general rule." End quote. He banned that too. Women who had previously sold their bodies were offered places in rehabilitation centers where they received housing and vocational training, which was also offered to the homeless. He also mandated that a minimum of 30% of government positions be held by women, amplifying their voices in decision-making spheres. Furthermore, his government granted pregnant girls and women the right to stay in school. In a symbolic demonstration of the burdens women bear within the home, Sankara orchestrated a protest. In Burkina Faso, the women traditionally went to the markets daily, bought the food and carried it home. But on September 22, 1984, the roles were reversed, and the men were forced into the markets to make them respect the workload and gain first-hand experience of the weight carried by women in their daily lives. It was an act aimed at challenging societal norms and fostering an appreciation for the contribution of women. Hear more about this and Thomas Sankara's struggle to make Burkina Faso stand on its own 2 feet in the full episode. You'll find the Black History Unveiled podcast wherever you get your podcasts.